All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the realities that young people are facing in China today.
Okay, yeah.
And, you hear a lot about this in the news, but we're going to be using a specific YouTube documentary called China's Disillusioned Youth.
Gotcha.
To really dive into some of the specifics.
Okay.
And, this idea of the Chinese dream.
Right.
This idea that if you work hard, you're going to be rewarded with a better life. And it's interesting because the documentary really kind of contrasts that with what's happening on the ground.
Right, yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like youth unemployment, which has been soaring.
Yes, especially after COVID.
Particularly after COVID.
Yeah.
And then the government's response has been really interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
One of the things I thought was really effective about the documentary was that it introduces us to real people like Tian King and Kana, and it really kind of personalizes
it gives a face to it.
the struggles, right?
Yeah.
So Tian King, for instance, he moved to Beijing for university.
Yes.
His family, poured all their resources into his education.
Right. Big investment.
Yeah. Big investment, hoping for a bright future.
Yeah. Classic Chinese dream story right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then reality hits.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see in the documentary how much it costs to just live in a city like Beijing.
Yeah.
He was sharing an apartment with a friend for 1,500 yuan.
Right.
Which is already a lot.
That's a lot of money, right?
But then they show if you wanted to rent a small studio apartment by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's 3,000 yuan.
It's at least 3,000, at least.
A minimum.
Yeah. So you can just imagine
the economic pressure.
The kind of pressure this puts.
Yeah, absolutely. On young people who are just starting out.
Especially when they're just starting out.
Their careers.
Exactly.
Entry-level salaries often...
Yeah, you're not making a lot.
Keeping pace with the rising cost.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to afford that.
Of living.
Especially not on your own.
No. And that's just rent.
Right.
We're not even talking about food transportation. All the other expenses.
All the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I read a study recently, and it said that the average monthly salary for a recent graduate in Beijing is only around 6,000 yuan.
Wow. Okay.
So half your income is going to rent alone.
Wow. That's if you're splitting it with someone.
Yeah. So no wonder Tian King is the young temple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
seeking some solace.
Seeking some solace.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's searching for something.
Yeah, he's searching for something.
Some kind of spiritual anchor.
Exactly.
In the middle of...
In all the chaos.
All this chaos and uncertainty. Yeah. And then you have another young person.
Trying to make it in Beijing.
But here's where things get really interesting with the documentary.
Okay.
Because they highlight the impact of China's strict...
Right. The zero COVID
policies.
Right. And you see how youth unemployment soaring. And what does the government do?
Right.
They stop publishing the statistics.
Yeah. They stop. And they change the statistics and change how they're counting the unemployment numbers, trying to control the narrative.
It's almost like they're trying to control the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely.
The struggles.
The struggles.
That these young people are facing.
That these young people are actually facing.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that sometimes
the official story.
The official narrative.
Yeah, the official narrative.
Doesn't match what's actually happening.
What people are actually experiencing.
On the ground.
Yeah.
And the documentary does a good job.
Yeah, it does a good job of
bringing those experiences to light.
Yeah.
And it's not just university graduates.
Right.
Like Tian King.
Yeah.
Khan. Yeah. Who are struggling. We also meet this delivery driver.
This unnamed delivery driver.
Right. He's unnamed.
Yeah.
And his story really revealed
the challenges
faced by people who don't have a formal education.
A formal education, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're relying on
this rapidly growing
service sector.
The service sector.
Which is becoming so...
Yeah, that's become like the backbone...
The China's economy.
Of the Chinese economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think about it,
all the e-commerce.
So
delivery,
food delivery, ride-hailing services.
The ride-hailing. I mean, it's
booming.
It's booming.
Yeah.
And it relies on...
this huge workforce. Of migrant workers.
Yeah. Often from rural areas.
Coming from the countryside.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are coming to the cities.
Yeah. Looking for better opportunities.
He's looking for better opportunities.
Yeah.
And the delivery driver's story is really...
It's pretty powerful.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
He talks about leaving his family behind.
Yeah, leaving his family.
In his rural hometown.
In his hometown.
To find work in Beijing.
Yeah.
He's working long hours.
Long hours.
He's sending most of his money back home.
Yeah, sending money back home.
To support his family.
Yeah, to support the family.
And it's...
Classic story. A story you hear over and over.
Yeah, over and over again.
Right.
It's a common story.
It's so common.
Yeah.
For
migrant workers.
So many migrant workers in China.
Yeah.
It's this story of...
sacrifice and resilience.
Sacrifice and resilience. But
limited choices.
It's also this story of limited choices.
And this constant struggle.
Right, and this constant struggle.
Yeah, to make ends meet.
To make ends meet.
Yeah.
And what really struck me was the contrast between
his hopes.
His aspirations.
Yeah, his aspirations for the future.
And the reality of his daily life.
His daily grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He talks about, wanting to improve his life.
Right.
Wanted to provide a better future.
The better future for his kids.
For his family.
Yeah.
But the circumstances.
that he's in.
Make it so...
They're very difficult.
Difficult to break free.
To break free from that cycle.
Cycle.
Of low-paying jobs.
Yeah, of low-paying jobs.
And long hours.
Yeah. Yeah, it really shows, that the Chinese dream isn't attainable for everyone.
Right.
And the documentary doesn't shy away from showing those disparities.
And it makes me wonder, we see the struggles of these migrant workers, like the delivery driver. But how does that relate to someone like Zhao Qingqian, who's navigating the gig economy while she's searching for a more stable job?
Right.
She's a university graduate.
Yeah.
So you would think that she would have more options available to her.
Yeah, she's got more skills.
Right.
Yeah.
But even she's facing challenges in this job market.
Even she's facing challenges, yeah.
So how do we reconcile those two?
Well, I think Zhao Qingqian's story adds another layer of complexity to this whole situation.
Okay.
Because she represents a growing trend of young people who are
highly educated, but are finding it harder and harder to secure traditional employment.
Right.
It's not just about a lack of jobs.
Right.
It's also about a mismatch between the skills they have and the skills that are in demand.
So it's not just a skills gap.
Right. It's not just the skills gap.
There's also this pressure to succeed.
Yeah, this immense pressure to succeed.
This pressure to live up to.
Yeah, these expectations.
Expectations.
Right.
And I think Zhao Qingqian really articulates that well. In this documentary, she talks about feeling self-doubt and disappointment.
Yeah. Especially when she compares herself to her peers.
To her peers and how they seem to be doing...
Yeah, who seem to be doing better. Yeah.
And there's this
unspoken competition.
Yeah. This pressure.
This pressure to prove your worth.
Yeah. And then you add in the cultural factors. Like in Chinese society, there's this strong emphasis
on saving face.
Not
burdening others with your problems.
So even if you're struggling,
you might hesitate to share your difficulties.
Burden your friends or family.
Right, because you don't want to appear weak or unsuccessful.
And so it creates this...
Can lead to isolation.
This sense of isolation and make it even harder.
And make it even harder to cope.
Who goes challenging.
So we're seeing this...
So it's like this confluence of factors.
Yeah, this confluence of...
economic pressure.
Societal expectations.
Norms.
Cultural norms.
Yeah, all coming together.
Like a perfect storm.
To create this really challenging environment.
Right.
Yeah. But amidst all of that...
Yeah.
You see this incredible resilience.
Yeah.
And adaptability.
Yeah. And people like Zhao Qingqian.
And Zhao Qingqian, yeah.
She doesn't just sit back and wait for a job to come to her.
And waiting.
She's taking initiative.
Right.
She's using her skills. To create her own opportunities.
And she starts making these food review videos.
Yeah, she starts making food review videos.
She turns her passion.
Into a side hustle. And it's not just...
It brings in some income.
About the income.
But it also lets her express her creativity and build her own brand.
Expressing herself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like...
It's like a new wave of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Emerging out of necessity, but also fueled by this desire for independence. And self-expression.
And self-expression. Yeah. And we see that not just in...
And we see this entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
Not just in Zhao Qingqian.
But also...
But in other people in the documentary, too.
In others featured in the documentary.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's reflecting.
It's a reflection of this changing mindset of this generation.
And it makes me think about Tian Qing's decision to leave Beijing and go back to his hometown.
Yeah, it's a tough decision.
Right.
Especially after all the sacrifice.
Especially after all the sacrifices his family made.
His family made for his education.
For his education.
Yeah.
But it also shows the pull.
It shows how important family is.
Family and community.
And community.
And this idea that success.
And this idea that maybe success
can be defined
in different ways.
In different ways. And it really highlights.
It also highlights this rural-urban divide.
Rural-urban divide in China.
That's such a huge factor.
Right. We hear all about, you know, the booming cities.
The booming cities, the economic centers.
Yeah, the tech hubs.
Yeah.
But a huge percentage.
But we forget that a lot of people,
the population,
still live in rural areas.
Still lives in rural areas.
So they have the opportunity.
Where the opportunities are more limited.
Are much more limited.
And the safety nets.
Yeah, the safety nets aren't as strong.
Are weaker.
Right.
So
you have Tian Qing going back to his hometown.
Yeah.
Looking for a different path.
And you have Zhao Qingqin.
And Zhao Qingqin.
Kind of embracing
the gig economy.
The gig economy.
Yeah, forging her own way.
Right.
They're both redefining what success looks like.
Yeah, it's like they're redefining what success looks like on their own terms.
On their own terms.
And challenging that traditional narrative.
Challenging that traditional narrative of the Chinese dream.
Of the Chinese dream.
Yeah.
So is the Chinese dream itself.
So it begs the question, is the Chinese dream
evolving?
Is it becoming more individualized?
Is it becoming more about
personal fulfillment?
Personal fulfillment.
And less about following a prescribed path.
And less about this kind of one-size-fits-all.
This one-size-fits-all approach
to success.
Exactly.
I mean, it's
a big question.
These are big questions.
And the documentary doesn't necessarily give us all the answers.
Right.
But it starts a conversation.
It sparks a conversation.
Yeah, a deeper conversation about what it means.
And it really shows the hopes.
Yeah, the hopes and the dreams.
The dreams and challenges.
Faced by young people.
Faced by young people in China today.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting...
You know what's really striking is that...
despite all the challenges...
Despite all the economic pressures...
The societal expectations...
The
uncertainties of the future...
There's still this sense of hope.
There's still this...
sense of hope.
That permeates the documentary.
Yeah, it permeates the whole film.
And Tian Qing actually talks about this.
He talks about it.
He talks about the inherent
hard work
and drive of Chinese people.
And he believes
that things
will get better. He's optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a powerful statement. Because it speaks to this deep-seated optimism.
This optimism that you see over and over.
This belief in the ability to overcome adversity. And create a better future. Yeah.
And I think that optimism
is fueled by the very resilience and
resilience that we've been talking about.
And adaptability that we've been talking about.
These young people are not just passive victims. They're actively shaping their destiny.
Finding creative solutions.
Yeah. Forging new paths to success.
So it's inspiring.
Yeah, it is inspiring.
To see that even in the face.
To see that even when they're facing
such challenges.
Huge challenge.
That there's still this belief.
They still haven't given up hope.
That things will get better.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most important takeaway for me.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, what the future holds.
Right.
For this generation and for China as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, they're facing these huge challenges.
But they're
also bringing
something new.
This new perspective, this more energy to the table.
This new energy and new ideas.
Yeah, and I think one of the key takeaways for me from this deep dive is how these
individual stories
can challenge our understanding of these broader narrative.
Bigger narrative.
Right? Because what we often hear about...
Yeah, we hear about China's economic growth.
China's economic progress.
In these abstract terms,
In terms of statistics.
GDP growth.
Right, GDP growth.
Rising incomes. Technological advancements. But these stories remind us.
That
progress isn't always linear.
progress isn't always linear.
And it doesn't affect everyone.
And it doesn't affect everyone equally.
Equally.
And they really...
It humanizes the statistics.
It humanizes statistics.
It shows us the real-life impact.
They show us the real-life impact.
Of these policies and pressures.
Yeah, of economic policies.
Yeah.
Social pressures. Cultural values.
Yeah. On the lives of actual people.
On the lives of actual people.
Yeah.
It makes us...
And it challenges us to question...
our own assumptions.
Our own assumptions.
About what's really going on.
About what's really going on. I mean, what does the Chinese dream even mean?
What does the Chinese dream even mean anymore?
Right. Is it?
Is it about material wealth? Is it about material wealth? Social status.
Social...
Personal fulfillment. From it. Something else entirely.
Is it something completely different?
And how does that definition...
And how does that definition change? Depending on who you are.
Depending on where you are. Your background.
Your background.
Your generation.
Your generation. Exactly.
So many.
These are all important questions.
So many questions to think about.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to...
It's easy to make generalizations.
About China.
Of generalizations.
Yeah.
But this documentary really shows us.
But the reality is...
much more complex than that.
The complexities.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's not a simple story.
And it's a reminder.
Yeah, it reminds us.
We need to seek out...
To seek out those different perspectives.
Diverse perspectives.
To go beyond the headlines.
I need to go beyond...
And really try to understand...
A hugely tasked.
What people are...
Really try to understand what people are actually experiencing on the ground.
On the ground.
And it's in those stories.
It's in those individual stories.
It's in those individual journeys that we really gain a deeper understanding. Of what's happening in China today.
China, yeah.
So So
keep asking those questions.
Yeah, as you continue to explore these topics.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Challenge your assumptions.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Challenge your assumptions.
Don't be afraid to learn something new.
Don't be afraid to learn something new.
Yeah.
Because the Chinese dream...
The Chinese dream might be changing.
Might be in flux. But the stories of these young people...
The stories of resilience.
Their resilience.
Adaptability.
Their hope. They offer a glimpse into a future.
Yeah, offer a glimpse into a future.
That's full of possibility. It's full of possibilities.
Yeah.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It has been a fascinating deep dive.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
And to our listeners, keep those questions coming.
Keep thinking, keep learning.
We'll be back soon.
And we'll be back soon.
With another deep dive.
With another deep dive.
Into a whole new world of knowledge and insight.
Into a whole new topic.
Yeah.